are a couple of top concerns that people have when they want to hit the road full time. How are they going to make money? If they have kids, how are they going to school their kids? Probably at the top of the list is it safe? Am I going to be safe with my family in an RV in a strange park surrounded by people I don't know, or out in the wilderness surrounded by no one? They're legitimate concerns, and today I'm going to share with you 5 stories of shady RV life experiences that we have experienced in the last 3.5 years. I'm supposed to clean my Jeep, but I think I'm just gonna have a chat with you guys instead. It's still on my to-do list, so don't judge me. We had a good time in it. Welcome back to No Ordinary Path. I'm Kristen, and my husband, John, is a travel nurse. We have traveled the country for the last 3.5 years in our 37-foot travel trailer with 3 kids and a doggo. A couple of these stories I have shared on here before in different videos, but I'm going to share a few extras that I haven't before. I want you to know the goal of my sharing these is not to scare you, but it is to sort of put your mind at ease as to what things someone has encountered out on the road. Because for me, the unknown of what could happen was far scarier than what has actually happened in the last 3.5 years. So these 5 incidences I'm going to share with you. I'm going to save the most recent one for last, so stay tuned to the end. I guess the best way to do this is in the order of how they happened. First one I have shared before. If you want to check it out, I really encourage you to do so. It's up here, and this happened in New York. I had to run into Walmart, and I ran in. I left my children in the car, and before you jump down my throat, it was in the 60s, it was overcast. They had communication with me via their tablets, and I was literally 5 minutes. I ran in, I got a pair of pants for Chloe, and I came back out, went through the self-checkout, came back out. When I came back out, there was a woman standing there waiting for me with her husband, furious, who immediately launched into how negligent of a parent I was and that this was not allowed in the state of New York, and how dare you leave your children in the car. I've called the police. We're going to get CPS involved. I got in the car. She attempted to block my entry into the vehicle. My kids were fine, other than they were scared of this woman. And her and her husband tried to keep me from leaving the parking lot. I basically just plowed through while he videoed my car all the way out of the parking lot. I left there. I was terrified. I thought that they were following me. I was so scared that the cops were gonna chase me. CPS was gonna track me down with my plate number and come take my kids away from me. It turns out that each state has its own separate laws on what age is appropriate to leave in your car unattended. And I know that there's a lot of different views on that aspect of things. That's not what this story is about. There were no statutes in place in New York at the time, so I would have legally been okay. But the point is that for months afterwards, myself and my children were constantly looking behind our backs, thinking that they were somehow going to track us down, and there was going to be a knock on the door, and they were going to try to take the kids away from me. And that was one of my very biggest fears, because we live such an unordinary life that other people don't understand. Of course, that never happened, but it was a very scary event. Next incident that happened was on our second contract in Arizona. We were staying in the boondocks out in the desert in Phoenix, and we were all by ourselves. There was nobody else. There weren't any other buildings. There were no other RVs. Now, mind you, this is of the time when that terrible story that down in Corpus Christi in Texas had happened, involving the death of a couple and their RV being stolen and taken across the border to Mexico. And so this was kind of rattling around in my head, and we had a man on a bicycle who came into our campsite, and I was inside and the kids were outside playing in the dirt, and he struck up a conversation with them, and they were just chitty chatty whatever. He didn't seem like he was all the way with it, but he came bearing groceries. He had on his bike, he had a basket, he had just bags of these groceries inside, and he wanted us to have them. And what I gathered by the end of the conversation is that he thought that we were homeless, and he had gotten this food from the food bank, which is very sweet. It's a very nice gesture. It was just very uncomfortable and odd out in the middle of the desert, and the fact that my children just started a conversation with a complete stranger and didn't think that that was weird. We don't talk to strangers. If you meet somebody, come get us first. Don't talk to them. We had to have the whole stranger danger conversation. He left. He never came back. We did stay at that site for 2 weeks and we never saw him again. He was very sweet. Most of the food, if not all of the food, was actually expired. So I don't know when he had received it from the food bank or if it was already expired at the food bank. Totally possible. But that was the second incident. We stayed on a person's property in Washington, and I had left to go get groceries really late one night. It was like 10:30 or 11. I went to Walmart, and that was a frequent thing for me to do because before COVID, stores were open really late, sometimes 24 hours, and it was the best time for me to get away with no kids. But that particular night, I was finished shopping, and I came out to the parking lot, and I'm pushing my cart, and I get closer to my car, and I realize there's a gentleman standing behind my van, standing there with his arms crossed, just like waiting for me. And I had this moment where I kind of froze and I stopped, and if I had thought straight, I would have turned around and gone back into the store and grabbed a security officer to escort me to my car. But I'm not very good in the heat of the moment of things, you guys. I'm not gonna lie, I have a panic mode where everything just goes doom and shuts down. So don't be like me, turn around, go get the security guard, okay? I see that there is a security guard like circling the parking lot and there's lights and stuff. So I just go up and I ask him, can I help you? And he says, yes, I'm just waiting here for you to get back because your van door is open. And on the other side of the van, sure enough, the sliding door was open, which is very odd because I would have had to click the button above to open that van door or physically go around and open the van door. I suppose I could have clicked it on my keychain. That's a possibility, but I did not have the kids with me. I would have had no reason whatsoever to let the kids out of the van. So my brain immediately went to like, this is weird. Did I leave it unlocked and he opened the door and now he's waiting for me? The hairs on the back of my neck were standing up straight and I had a really weird feeling about it. I thanked him. I like threw my stuff in the van and I got in and locked the doors immediately. And I think when you're on the road and you're going to a lot of parking lots, and especially if you're doing things like late at night, it's really important to be aware of your surroundings and do better at following your gut instinct. Number 4 is the incident that happened just last year, also in Phoenix, Arizona, in the desert. We did a whole video on this. You can look at it up here. There were prison inmates that had escaped a prison in Florence. It was plastered everywhere. There were signs all over the place about these escaped prison inmates and how dangerous they were. Here we are out in the middle of the desert by ourselves, and I'm thinking, well, they're probably not gonna like go knock on someone's door inside town. They're probably going to be out in the outskirts of town hiding in the desert. That's what my mind thought. And one night we go to bed and we wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning with the spotlight on us from the helicopter. And it was just really low, it lit up the whole RV. This happened like 2 days after the whole incident of the prison escape, and they had not found them yet. So it was in that time frame that would have made sense. I don't think it was that. I will never know what it was. That was the first time that I've ever been scared enough to load the kids in the car and leave. And it's the reason why we have 2 vehicles. I loaded all the kids into the van. They don't even know what happened. If you ask them today, they slept through the whole thing. They have no idea what happened. But that day, we took a tour of the city and we went to all the skate parks, one after the other, stopping at Quick Trip or whatever in between each one to get a treat. I literally stayed away from the RV until John got off work that night. And then the next day, he was off and we moved. That brings us to Shady RV incidents number 5. We have had one thing stolen from us in the past. That was in Tucson, Arizona, but we were not in an RV park. Ironically, we were staying in a hotel and it got cut off of the back of my van. The cable got caught and my expensive mountain bike got stolen. That was kind of a little bonus, but it's a setup for this incident because we had another bike stolen. This time it was Ethan's bike, and Ethan's bike is not a super nice bike. It's a Walmart kid bike that's been beat up quite a bit. All of the other bikes are properly locked up behind the RV, but Ethan and Chloe's are often not because they're not really great bikes and they get used a lot. And so he had played on it and parked it up against the RV and then went to bed. The next day I realized that it was gone. We actually went around the neighborhood here and searched for the bike. A few days goes by, go to the library, and here comes this person on a bike that looks just like Ethan's, drive right in front of the Jeep. He turns around, he comes back, whoop, right in front of the Jeep again. Oh my gosh, that's Ethan's bike! Because see, Ethan has this cup holder that's on the back of his bike, back underneath the seat, basically. And he had stripped all the stickers off of his bike. So it was this red, speckly design that is a Walmart bike, but he had taken off all the stickers. And it also had this yellow paint rubbed up against it from when he parked it against one of those yellow cement barriers, and so it had this yellow stripping on it, all of which were on this bike that randomly, miles from our RV park, is right in front of my Jeep. I go over there and I confront him about it, and I ask him where he got his bike, and he said that he purchased it yesterday from someone. And I said, I'm really sorry to tell you, but I think this is my son's bike. It was stolen 2 days ago. And he's like, well, I'm sorry, I paid for it. And I said, can I look at it? And I picked it up and I started looking at it, and I said, this is definitely absolutely my son's bike. And I start just walking it back to the Jeep. I still can't believe that I did this. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm taking this back. This is my son's bike. And he's like, you can't do that. And I'm like, I'm happy to call the police because I believe this is his stolen bike. Well, I'll sell it to you for $40. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not buying my son's bike back from you. So I get on the phone and I call the police, and he's a little bit more nervous at this point. While I was on the phone with the police station, he was taking pictures of the Jeep. He was taking pictures or video of my license plate in the back. In the time that I was waiting for him to show up, I was trying to shove the bike into my Jeep. And then he says, I'll sell it to you for $25. That's what I paid for it. And I said, oh, so you're trying to make a profit off of the stolen bike. He asked me if we could friend each other on Facebook so that we could work this out. I said, no, I'm not comfortable giving you any information. He asked me for my phone number. I didn't give him any of my information. I get off the phone and they were there. I kid you not, they were there in like a minute. They must have been right in the area. It turns out I was actually in a not so good area of Anchorage. Asked us what was going on. I told him that I believe this was my son's bike. He asked me if I had filed a police report, which I had not. He asked me if I had a serial number, which I did not. And the guy was basically like, fine, whatever, you can have it, and starts to walk away. The police officer gets a call that there's a gunshot incident that happened and he has to go. So there's no report filed. They acted like I was kind of crazy for calling the police, and nothing was settled. He just left. The guy that had the bike walked away, and so I just loaded it into my Jeep and went back. I have a very recognizable Jeep, and I did not know if there was going to be retaliation because I essentially just took it back. I mama beared it and took it back, and I got really nervous because if he was the person who stole it and was telling me a lie, then he knew where we lived. If his story was right and he knew the person that he bought it from, he could go back to them, who would know where it was stolen from. And again, I have a very recognizable Jeep that he had pictures of, and he had taken the license plate picture. And I was terrified that someone was going to come back to our site and steal more things or damage our property. So the next day I made John take my Jeep with him to work so that it was not parked in front of our RV, so that it could not be a target the next couple of days. And nothing has come from it, and I'm very grateful that there is nothing on it that says no ordinary path anywhere. And that's by design. A lot of people use that to advertise their social media. Now having 2 incidences where people have videoed or taken pictures of my license plate, I do not feel comfortable having any more identifiable social media contact information on our vehicles. There are not a lot of places here in Anchorage to stay, and unfortunately we were told before we got here that Anchorage has kind of a reputation of having some shady characters. I've been in really big cities before and haven't felt as unsafe as I have at times here in Anchorage, which is weird to me. I didn't expect that about Alaska. One thing I should mention is that during this time, 3 other kids in the RV park had their bikes stolen as well. When I reported it to the front desk at the RV park, they said that unfortunately this happens. They do have security officers here that go around the park, but people can time that and strike when that security cart is not in the parking lot. Lesson learned, even if you think it's not valuable, lock it up. Before we came to Alaska, I was proud to say that 3 years on the road and I've never had anything stolen from my RV site. Wah wah, now I have. Even with all those incidences, the overwhelming majority of experiences on the road have been extremely positive and not terrifying, not nearly as terrifying as my head would make it seem before we hit the road. This is also why we don't post content that is current. We usually post content after we have left a location. Well, that is it for now. I'm sure you have comments. Leave them below. Try not to blast me. I mean, it's gonna happen because I'm sharing real life, and we're not gonna shy away from real life here. I mean, can you believe I got the bike back? Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you out there.